very painful radical procedures and have a few more to go. Tut's lower jaw and teeth were removed and her face was reconstructed with the bone taken from her lower leg, which is the part of fibula. Then, after 3 months, the surgeon told her that there had been a pathological mistake, just a cross-contamination, and that she did not nor did ever have the cancer. The rage Tut felt when she found out that all of the original pathologists would have had to do was completely double-check his pathological records to see whether there had been an opportunity for a mistake and then perform a couple relatively simple DNA type tests on the cells from the slides. So, she then later found out that this type of cancer is extremely rare in young, healthy women, and further, the doctor knew that at least per his subsequent testimony, there is a suspected cross-contamination or problem of some sort. So rather than check his very own limited business records for other possibility, cancer patients he may have had in and around the time that specimen was received. So prepared and evaluated, he asked his receptionist to look over his records and let him know what she found. And then after that, she then filed a lawsuit for medical malpractice. So the defendant's attorney, which is Charles Dwayne Chuck Cone, claims that the negligence of the doctor is enormous. The case conclusion proceeded on May 14, 2003.
The ethical issues involved in the case. First, medical malpractice. This is defined as any act or omission by a physician during treatment of a patient that deviates from accepted norms of practice in the medical community and causes an injury to the patient. To be considered medical malpractice under the law, the claim must have the following characteristics: a violation of the standard of care, an injury was caused by negligence, and the injury resulted in significant damages. Kim Todd was diagnosed to have cancer in her jaw and was told to undergo a surgery to prolong her life. She consented and underwent the surgery to eradicate a cyst in her gums, remove her lower jaw and teeth, and rearrange her face using her bone from her lower leg, specifically the fibula. Later on, after the pathologist performed a re-evaluation of tissue from her mouth, since the said cancer was unusual for a woman of her age, they found out that she never had cancer in the first place, and that her first specimen was only cross-contaminated. She became disfigured for the rest of her life. This is clearly a case of medical malpractice. The medical professional did not follow through with proper standard of care, which likely led to the cross-contamination of the samples and led to her misdiagnosis. The subsequent surgery after her misdiagnosis had resulted in significant damages. Next is medical negligence. Medical negligence is when a medical professional or provider fails to provide the standard of care that could result in causing harm to a patient. Doctors and other healthcare providers have a duty to their patients to provide treatment that is in line with the medical standard of care, which is defined as the degree of care and skill of the average healthcare provider who practices the provider's specialty, taking into account the medical knowledge that is available to the physician. In the case of Kim Todd, medical negligence was evident because the resultant damage or harm was caused by the healthcare provider's breach of duty. First, the laboratory staff failed to observe proper standard procedure conducting the test, causing cross-contamination. Second, pathologists, checking the accuracy of results of their patients, should have made sure that all of the tests were carefully and repeatedly checked prior to testing and releasing of the results. And lastly, the physician. Physicians should have the knowledge and training to know the differential diagnosis of her case and thus be able to recognize if test results are aligned or misaligned with the conducted medical interview and physical exam. The physician in this case, as per his subsequent testimony in court, claimed he knew the type of cancer is extremely rare in young, healthy women, and that he had suspected a cross-contamination or a problem of some sort. All this combined showed medical negligence. He had failed to request for a confirmation test and did not uphold his duty of ensuring everything was in order when he had already had a suspicion that something was amiss. The healthcare provider's breach of duty resulted in misdiagnosis and unnecessary surgery that led to damage and harm to Kim Tot. The next principle to be violated is the principle of non-maleficence. As we know, non-maleficence is the obligation of not causing harm to others. Because of the erroneous results of her lab test and misdiagnosis from her physician, Kim had undergone 5 unnecessary and burdensome surgeries, was permanently disfigured, had difficulty in chewing, and was likely ridiculed for her deformities. Beneficence in medical practice is the obligation of a physician to act for the benefit or the best interest of the patient. The principle of beneficence is violated in this case. The physician did not act in the best interest of the patient, and he did not ask for a confirmatory test. The misdiagnosis led to a medical intervention that is not best suited for the patient. Thus, the doctor failed to give proper care for Kim Tot and instead caused injury resulting in permanent disfigurement.
For the ethical issue regarding justice, proper treatment was given to Kim Tot, but the moment that she was misdiagnosed, there is already an unfair and permanent burden for her disfigured face, for the difficulty in eating, and the emotional trauma that the cancer brought to her. For the compensatory justice refers to the extent to which people are fairly compensated for their injuries by those who have injured them. Just compensation is proportional to the loss inflicted on a person. In Kim Tot's case, any amount cannot compensate the 5 painful radical surgeries that were made to her. For the totality, the principle of totality, the organs and the other parts of the body exist for the sake of the whole person. Any action that damages a part of the body or prevents it from fulfilling its purpose violates the natural order and it is morally wrong. However, a single part may be sacrificed if the loss is necessary for the good of the whole person. In Kim Tot's case, it wasn't violated when they removed the jaw, but when the issue of misdiagnosis and cross-contamination occurred, removing her jaw doesn't do anything beneficial to her body and it caused further damage to her. For the part 3 of our discussion, the case developments in the Kim Tot's case, the ruling of the court on the case. So, confidential settlement in favor of the plaintiff for around $250,000. President Bush plan is to limit down economic damages to $250,000 maximum for pain and suffering. So under President Bush plan, most attorneys will no longer be able to accept representation of these types of cases on a contingency basis. So the attorney receives 30% of recovery for their services if Kim Tot live to be 75 years old and assuming her attorney receives their 30% of the recovery for their services. And that would leave less than $12 per day for Tot's damages. If the attorneys cannot recover compensation for their hours of complex and economic investment in experts, etc., to build a plaintiff's case, they quite honestly cannot economically justify taking these types of cases. So based on Kim Tot's word regarding to her case, I am conservative Republican of Texas. I voted for Bush both as governor and as president, and I'm here to tell you that medical malpractice can happen to anyone. It's not only the liberal Democrats who are harmed and file a suit, but conservative Republicans too. Regardless of your political position, I ask you to put yourself in my shoes. Would you accept the experiences that I have endured and continue to endure for $12 a day? I really do not think you or anyone else would. So also Kim Tot's words or money will not change what my family has been through. People who have cancer are cured, but I'm not a walking miracle, and I'm a survivor of medical malpractice. So this will be the last part of our presentation. Thank you for listening.
Okay, so the case was quite direct, and the reporters were able to discuss what was the basis, no? Or what was the cause of all the hulabaloo in this case, right? So we've seen what happened to the patient. Okay, so it was unnecessary. That's why the principle of totality was also mentioned. Okay, so we've seen that the first responsibility, no, lied on the shoulder of the pathologist. Okay, so it's error in the reading and diagnosing, no, the tissue which was passed to the pathology department. Okay, so definitely, it's like a chain reaction. So the surgeon did a surgery which was not needed, no, and unfortunately, so disfigurement of the face because it's a commando, no, so complete mandibular, no, operation. So that's what they call commando, no, operation. And we know is that the different the vessels of the face are very small. So medyo mahirap talaga siya, no. Aside from that, um the responsibility secondarily lied on the surgeon, no? So, dapat the surgeon, no, in principle, we learned from this case, the surgeon should have requested for, because it's a very delicate operation, no? She or he could have ask for a second reading, probably. Pwede, no? Kasi, di ba, I mean, who are medtechs here? So, sa pathology kasi, several cuts yung tinitingnan nila. Di ba? So, probably, hindi, anyway, so, yeah, there was a misdiagnosis or there was, anong nangyari dito? Contamination, I think, no? So, pwedeng nagkapalit, no? Nagkaroon ng contamination. So, cross-contamination of the specimen. Okay, so with regards the principle of totality, may I ask the reporters if, no, if this is another case. So, well, actually, this is the case of Angelina Jolie, right? So we know that the mom died of cancer, I think, or buhay pa ba yung mom niya? Hindi ko na alam. Basta merong cancer, right? And as a prophylaxis, so she decided, no, to have her breasts taken out. Okay? And hindi pa siya natuwa. So even his or her rather, her reproductive system, pinatanggal niya. So is there something wrong there? Because the main reason of Angelina Jolie was it's a preventive uh, action, no? It's a preventive action against or to yeah, a preventive action in order for her not to develop cancer later on because of high propensity or high risk having her mother, no, genetically, probably can genetically transfer the gene of cancer. Can it be justified? Patricia, can it be justified?
Doc, I think po since the principle of totality is or yung meaning niya po is an individual may not dispose the or her organs or to destroy the capacity to function. Yun nga po, except po if the extent nung reason kung bakit tatanggalin yung part of the body of the nung patient or yung case is for the general well-being ng whole body. So, since yung case po siguro ng Angelina Jolie is for prevention po, I think parang may butas pa rin po dun sa action niya since it interferes po or prevents the organ from achieving its natural purpose po.
Okay, sige. Yeah. So the way you discussed it, very good. So that's the way it can be seen in one perspective. So another perspective is we have to study, no? So for example, the different conditions. Okay, so number one, the reason. Definitely good, no? So because it's for preventive aspect, it's for preventive measure. It's a preventive measure rather. Okay. Secondly, you have to look at the different organs which are being asked to be removed. Diba? So breast. Ilang taon na si Angelina Jolie during that time? I think nasa 40s na siya. Okay? So there's no function of I'm not saying that, okay, dahil walang function ng organ, tatanggalin mo na. Okay? So we're at the premise of this patient has a very high risk of developing cancer. Okay, that's our premise. Okay po? Klaro yun ha? Okay, so what is the breast for? Of course, functionally it's for breastfeeding. Diba? And of course, it's accessory. Okay, so of course this it's also for pleasure, no? Because you are all medical doctors. Okay, in a marriage in a couple in marriage life. You get it? Okay, so those are the basic functions. So for Angelina Jolie, wala naman na, 'di ba? So kasi she's already in her 40s, I think, or even 50s. Okay, more so with her reproductive, her uterus, her ovaries. Okay, so yun yung mga tinitingnan. But if the patient, no, is still in her childbearing age, so kahit preventive measure yun, sinasabi niya, you have to question. 'Di ba? Why? Okay, pwede pa siya mag-anak. Baka kasi contraceptive mentality na siya. You get it? Okay, so there, no? So anyway, yun yung isang scenario na pwedeng tingnan, no? With regards the principle of totality. Okay. Okay. So last question. Can you differentiate what is malpractice from medical malpractice from medical negligence or medical error? What's the main difference of these three? Ano ba sila? Anong relationship nila? Yes, Ariana.
Yung negligence po, it's under involved malpractice. Pero I think yung malpractice po as defined po yung, sorry, wait lang.
Okay. No, dali lang. Sige. Ako na lang magdi-discuss. When you say malpractice, it's already in the law, in the court, no? In court. You get it? So it has already been discussed according to the rules, the guidelines. It's a lawsuit. Okay. Medical negligence, medical error. So yun yung cause ng medical malpractice. There has to be a cause of why a medical malpractice suit is being pursued. You get it? Ganun lang yun, no? And then, medical malpractice, napatunayan na siya na pwedeng intended talaga ng doctor. Gets? Okay. Medical negligence, okay, most of the times, it's not intended. Or medical error, it's not intended. Kasi we're also human beings. We can commit mistakes. Okay. Okay. So, pwede siyang, ang medical negligence, pwedeng intended, pwede rin hindi. Kaya siya negligence. No? So, what is the role of the physician? Definitely to commit, if possible, zero. No? Zero error, zero negligence. No? So lesser. So our role is to really be prepared professionally. Okay. And there's this referral system. If your capacity to treat is not enough for your patient, then you refer accordingly. Okay? So, ganun lang. Ganun lang kasimple. Basta ang medical malpractice, nasa law na yun, nasa court na siya. Okay? So, napatunayan na siya. Pero medical negligence, medical error, hindi pa. Okay? Can be intended, can be not intended. Okay? Klaro. Ganun lang kasimple. Okay, so thank you very much. Okay, so now we go to the next case. Let's give them a round of applause. These three girls. Okay, sige. Next case, please.
Wait lang po, Doc. Share screen po ako.
Okay. You're having problems? Sino yung reporters na wala na ata?
Hello, Doc.
Yeah, let's wait.
May technical problem lang po, Doc. Saglit lang po.
Good afternoon, everyone. So for today, we'll be discussing the case of Carol Weir. This will be the overview of our discussion. First, we will discuss the history of the case, then ethical issues involved in the case, and lastly, the contribution of the case to ethics. So first, let's discuss the history of the case. Carol Weir is an activist for victims of anesthesia awareness or waking up during surgery. She worked as an office administrator and court reporter in Reston, Virginia. Also, she held a bachelor's degree and master's degree in flute performance and trained as a professional flutist. Carol Weir suddenly felt a strong pain in her right eye, and upon visiting the local emergency room, she was diagnosed with a scratch sclera, and later on, she was diagnosed with recurrent corneal erosion syndrome. By 1998, she had undergone 14 operations to relieve the chronic severe pain in her eye, but none of them deemed successful. On January 24, 1998, she underwent ocular enucleation or the complete removal of the eyeball, and for this procedure, she was given general anesthesia. As we know, general anesthesia reduces pain sensation and induces paralysis and unconsciousness in the patient. However, the anesthesia failed, so Carol was awake during the surgery, but she was paralyzed. According to her, she wanted to scream, but her vocal muscles were paralyzed. Also, she could feel the tugging as her eye was being removed, and that she could hear the conversation of the operating team. The doctor noticed that she was awake, so the anesthesiologist increased the amount of the nerve blocking agent, which felt like she was being scalded from the inside. Now, Carol Weir suffers from extreme post-traumatic stress disorder because of this event. She would experience vivid flashbacks that would transport her back to the operating table. Also, she would have nightmares on the operation itself, and she cannot sleep in a bed because lying down triggers her PTSD, and the only rest she gets is 2 to 3 hours of sleep on a reclined chair. This incident helped establish the anesthesia awareness campaign headed by Carol Weir, which seeks to support people who would go through the same ordeal as her.
So for ethical issues, first we have to know what are the basic principle of medical ethics. So the first one is non-maleficence, wherein the anesthesiologists or the doctors abide by the doctrine of do no harm to their patient. Next is autonomy, wherein the patient is an independent being who can make fully informed decisions regarding his or her own care, and coercion is unethical. So for justice, anesthesiologists or doctors should be fair when providing their services to surgical patients. And lastly, for the beneficence, while the principle of non-maleficence is based on do no harm, beneficence requires physician to do good for their patient in every situation. So for the next slide is for the beneficence, so meaning to doing good. So the principle of beneficence is violated by means of not providing comfort to the patient once she was woken up during the actual procedure. Aside from that, there is also a failure to alleviate the situation by proceeding without any intervention. And lastly, after the procedure, Carol Weir revealed that she was awake during the last hours of the procedure, yet the doctor then doubt her claim and even argue that at least she didn't feel the pain during the actual procedure. So, for the next ethical issue is the non-maleficence. So, non-maleficence means intention, needless harm or injury. So, the sequelae of harm, pain, and distress happens in this case. The harm happens wherein the incidental harm was observed because of the carelessness and negligence of the surgical team. Then the pain happens when it took a while before the surgeon noticed Carol was awake, but they still continue with the procedure after increasing the dose of anesthesia. And lastly, for the distress, the patient was diagnosed with post-traumatic syndrome and had to sleep in a recliner due to the flashbacks. So according to other study of Osterman et al., approximately 50% of those patients who experienced anesthesia awareness were diagnosed with post-traumatic syndrome. And lastly, is for the justice. So justice means duty to treat, or it means a licensed physician accept a patient for the purpose of treatment, wherein we have to contact to provide care exists. So every person has the right to appropriate health and medical care of good quality. So in Carol Weir experience, and she advocate anesthesia awareness of PTSD. So one way to look at the patient's right is to view the legal implication when these rights are violated. So when suffering and injury or experiencing an adverse outcome during medical treatment leads the patient to sue his doctor or for malpractice and seek compensation. So Carol Weir has filed a lawsuit for malpractice grounds and received for at least six-figure settlement. So that's how justice came for Carol Weir.
So next, I'm gonna talk about the contributions of the case to ethics. So after the incident, anesthesia awareness campaign was founded by Carol Weir. It is a non-profit patient advocacy organization founded in January 24 of 1998. And its mission is to prevent patients, even one, from experiencing anesthesia awareness and its consequences. The contributions of the campaign: the brochure on anesthesia awareness. This is in coordination with the American Society of Anesthesiologists, also the Anesthesia Awareness Helpline, and the Anesthesia Awareness Support website. The Sentinel Event Policy on preventing and managing the impact of anesthesia awareness, wherein several recommendations were made, including the use of pre-medication like the amnestic drugs, the use of higher doses of induction drugs, avoiding muscle paralysis if possible, and also conducting periodic maintenance of all the equipment. Practice advisory for intraoperative awareness and brain function monitoring. Its purpose are the following: to identify risk factors, provide decision tools, to stimulate the pursuit and evaluation of strategies, provide guidance for the intraoperative use of brain function monitors. So the practice advisory for intraoperative awareness and brain function monitoring includes the perioperative evaluation, the pre-induction phase anesthesia, intraoperative monitoring, and intraoperative and post-operative monitoring. So for the perioperative evaluation, it includes the review of patient's medical records, patient interview to assess level of anxiety or previous experiences with anesthesia, and also physical examination. Under pre-induction phase anesthesia, the adherence to a checklist protocol for anesthesia machines and equipment. For intraoperative monitoring, the use of a brain monitor should be made on a case-by-case basis. And lastly, the intraoperative and post-operative monitoring, wherein a patient should be offered counseling or psychological support. So these are our references. That ends our report.
Okay, so this is another common, well, not so common in the Philippines, but still common in the United States or some other Western countries. But here, I think the Filipino anesthesiologists are very careful, no? So this case is more on the shoulder of the anesthesiologist. Okay, so again, no, I mean, what can cure this, no, error is proper professional preparation. Okay, so but again, no, this is a case already which has been, yeah, which sometimes still, no, happen and may happen. Okay, so there are guidelines already. So that's where the cases, this case contributed, no? So mas maraming guidelines. So there are more even before the perioperative time, intraoperative and postoperative. So mas mahigpit na sila. So there are more guidelines, there are more rules. Okay, so in the operating theater, no, sometimes in order to lessen the stress among the surgeons, among the surgical team, no, the surgeons, the anesthesiologists, and even the nurses, because sometimes there are emergencies or emergency surgical procedures, or there are so much surgeries and few personnel. So yan, so antok-antok. So sometimes they try to entertain themselves. Diba? Okay, so who are nurses here? No? So nagdadaldalan sila, or some surgeons prefer a soft music, no? So but we avoid that, no? So in order not to be distracted, no? Even the anesthesiologist, okay, sometimes kasi boring, no? Naghihintay lang sila, but actually the most challenging, no, part lies on the anesthesiologist. Kasi kung mali ang kanyang timpla ng anesthesia and her monitoring or his monitoring lapse, okay, so that's where these things happen, no? So nagkakaroon ng anesthesia awareness, gising na yung pasyente. So syempre, no, masya-shock ka talaga. What happened to the case? Nagkaroon pa siya tuloy ng PTSD. post-traumatic, no? So it's psychological, okay? So these surgical errors, even medical errors for that matter, have both economic and non-economic effects. And there are physical and psychological effects, definitely. Okay, so directo. Okay, so anyway, lastly, I will be sharing a slide. Thank you very much, reporters. I don't have any questions kasi madali lang tong case na to. Okay, so one of the most common surgical errors, no, is the wrong site, no? Wrong site surgery ang tawag nila. Okay, so this is a case. This is an example of a wrong site surgery. A 49-year-old man underwent a colonoscopy by a colorectal surgeon who identified a large firm tumor causing partial narrowing approximately 60 to 70 cm from the entry site. Okay, so from the entry site, so alam na niya, no? Pathology of this tumor was suspicious for carcinoma. In addition, a polypectomy was performed at a different location and the site was tattooed. Pathology of the second site was consistent with tubulovillus adenoma. Okay, so yun yung natattoo, no? So, na-mark. 2 weeks later, the same surgeon performed a partial colectomy of the tattooed area. So, yung tattooed area is what? Yun yung nandun yung yung mga where polyps were, no? Yung tumor na miss out, 'di ba? So the tumor is 60 to 70 centimeter from the entry site. Hindi siya na-mark. Ang na-mark niya kung ano yung where the polyps were. Yung tinanggal niyang polyps. Polypectomy. Okay. So, na-confuse yung surgeon. Okay. So, on further consideration after the procedure, the surgeon reviewed the colonoscopy and pathology reports and realized the wrong portion of the colon has been removed. So therefore, imagine the scenario. Okay, natanggalan ka ng colon which are still healthy. And the abnormal part, no, worse is the tumor which probably is still actively growing, no, was still there. Okay, so and 2 weeks. So, hindi natin alam kung ano yung tumor na to. Sometimes, time-dependent ang mga mass, ang mga bukol. Time-dependent, ibig sabihin, the earlier that you get them out, the better. So, if you delay it, no, even just few days, magugulat ka. Ang laki na ng advancement. Okay, so what happened to this? 2 weeks, no? And then, the surgeon discussed with the patient. Okay, so okay lang. Kasi na-discuss yun ng maayos. So, the patient initially did well after the second procedure. So, nag-consent. So, probably na-explain ng maayos. So, there was no medical lawsuit, no? Medical malpractice applied, no? So, anyway, so there. However, hindi maganda yung second procedure. Probably because of the mass of the size of the mass, or I don't know what happened within that 2 weeks, no? Okay, so and anyway, in short, naging complicated yung case. So nagkaroon ng 2 days, palaging akala may infection, no, or adhesions, no? And then after some time, no, after a month, no, hindi pa rin makita. Okay, so nagkaroon na ng other complications. Okay, and then it took some time, no, for the surgeon to refer the patient to an oncologist. Imagine 10 weeks after the initial surgery. Okay, so furthermore, yung oncologist, since kakakita lang niya, nag-observe, hindi nag-chemo kaagad. Okay, so, okay, that means nagkaroon pa ng further devastation. Okay, probably after some time, hindi nila nakita na may mets na. Okay, so there. So 2 months later, the patient was noted to have metastatic cancer involving the liver, and an intravenous port was placed to facilitate chemotherapy. Okay, so anyway, this is an example of a wrong site surgery. and you see that there was also a chain of reactions, no? So, and complications. So, nakakalungkot. Okay. So, anyway, so, common errors as wrong site, yung mga limbs. Okay. So, yung mga below the knee amputations, okay, or even just fingers, nakakalimutan which side. Okay, so that's the wrong site surgery. Okay, so several approaches were recommended in an attempt to reduce the risk and improve communication. So if you were listening to the report of the second group, so there were guidelines which were mentioned, no, in order to decrease the perioperative, intraoperative, and postoperative risks, okay, of anesthesia awareness. We can also apply those, no, in simple surgical procedures or even in complicated surgeries. Okay, so eto ulit. Pre-operative initial timeout to review informed consent. So very important, no? If you're the surgeon, of course, there's an urgency, no? There's the sense of urgency, but at the same time, you cannot miss out documentations, the documents that you need, no? And then you study your case, confirm the patient identity, very important. Okay, and of course, you have to review the records in order to make sure that you will be operating the patient properly. Okay. And then in the operating room, of course, ideally two medical professionals and then para alam, mali ka, ay hindi tama to. Okay? So may nagsasabi. Okay? And then this should be documented always in the medical record, no? Very important. Now your generation nasa tablet na, okay? So if you've seen the new season of Grey's Anatomy, okay, tablet na sila sa ER, but of course, you still sign. Okay, so you still sign. You make note. It's just on tablet, no? It's not on the hard copy. Okay, na pwede naman siyang i-print unless binura, okay, from the system. Okay, so always document. And then in the operating room, so again, no, implement a timeout with the entire team to review patient identity again. Okay, and then the diagnostic studies, if merong frozen biopsy during surgery, okay, mabilis lang, send out the specimen, and then few minutes after, the result from the pathology comes out, and then that will determine if the operation will continue or not. Okay, if close open lang. Okay, so frozen section. Okay, so review those diagnostic studies and then always confirm the planned surgical site. And then there should always be checklist. Okay, ngayon kasi sa operating room, especially in big hospitals, hindi na to problem, no? So very specific. Okay, so very specified checklists already. And then in order to aid, no, everyone, the nurses, okay, the surgeons, the anesthesiologists, no, of what things needed, okay, para hindi ma-miss out. Okay. And then ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina, to reduce distractions and interruptions. Okay, so sana wag masyadong magdadaldalan, okay, focus on the patient, and then walang marites. Okay, the surgical theater always is a good time to make chismis. Okay, so but anyway, so dapat hindi ganon. Okay, and then at the completion of the procedure, okay, so again, another debriefing, review of any equipment or supplies. Okay, so dito, hindi na to common, yung may naiiwang surgical instrument inside or gauze, no? Because part of checking of the surgery actually is to count the number of all the things that were used. Okay, so dapat magtali before and then after operation. Okay? Para alam na walang naiiwan sa loob. And then consistent utilization of a pre-operative review of the surgical plan, standardized checklists, and continued open communication throughout the team. So dapat consistent. Always standard. Okay? So this is the importance of why these cases are being discussed with you. Okay? So aside from the different bioethical principles, no, so discussed already, justice, beneficence, non-maleficence, okay, we have to have standard procedures. Okay, standard checklists, standard peri-operative, intraoperative, and post-operative reviews. Okay, so hope claro. And then, very important, you have to know which is a case of medical practice, which is a case of medical negligence or error. Okay, so just to know the differentiations, okay, anong link ng medical practice with medical negligence or error. Okay, so that's it. So my second case is just another example of anesthesia awareness. Okay, I was awake but paralyzed. Okay, so this was, siya pa rin pala to. Okay, si Weirer pa rin. Okay, so undergoing eye surgery in 1998. Okay, so anyhow, that's it. So that's my, I think that's my last lecture with you, because next week I will just share with you the lecture on the last topic, but you will have your final presentation with your final project. If you have questions with the final project, okay, you just directly send me a telegram. It's okay not to go through Stephen na, no? So, kung medyo nababagalan kayo kay Dr. Kadukoy, si Dr. Kadukoy ba ang ang class coordinator?
Yes, Doc, ako po.
Okay. Pag nababagalan kayo kay Stephen, dumiretso na kayo sa akin sa Telegram. Okay, if you have questions. Okay, so good luck. So last week of lecture and then finals na. Okay, I hope you are all doing well in your other subjects. Okay, so let's end early. Thank you very much. If you don't have questions, if you have questions, you can clarify now. Wala naman. Okay, sige. Maraming salamat.